Can you build a career helping people improve their health without becoming a doctor, therapist, or personal trainer? Today's guest found a unique path by combining holistic wellness and exercise science. Let's see if this is the best career for you. Today on Time to Discuss, I want to welcome Fernando Alvarez May, and it's time to discuss what it's like working as a holistic coach. Fernando, thank you for joining me today.
And thank you for letting me be on your show.
Absolutely. This is cool. So you're a holistic coach. I've interviewed a number of different coaches over the years,
Yeah.
but I've never actually spoke with a holistic coach. So talk to me about that. Let's start. What is it exactly that you do?
Well, it's a couple different things to be honest. It's a combination of, one strength training, two like physical therapy or corrective exercise, and then the last one is functional medicine. And functional medicine can go in like different directions, but really just working on better sleep, managing stress, and then working on better gut health. Those are kind of like it's all kind of like coming and together. So that was the best way to like call what I do is like holistic coaching.
I love that. Okay, and that all makes sense. I've spoken to like a holistic wellness expert in the past. I've spoken to a number of people that are kind of in this world, but everyone is just a little bit different, and that's really
Yeah.
cool. And no one doing, from what I remember, no one is doing exactly what you're doing. So that's really cool too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you.
So talk to me about this. How did you actually get started doing this? What gave you this idea where it's like, you know what, I'm going to try doing this, and you went from there?
Well, honestly, it's kind of like morphed into the holistic coaching. In the beginning, it started as like personal training. And really that started because I wanted to get better as a basketball player, because I used to play basketball in college. And then my mom was having issues with her hip, with sciatica, things like that. And so I was learning that the same exercise that I was doing for, playing basketball better was actually helping my mom with her alleviate her hip pain, right? Uh, but then funny thing is like, throughout the years, working with my mom, she started like having these other issues, stress management, gut health, sleep issues, things like that. So I had to start learning more different ways of like how to help her. And then from that, I was kind of like building this whole big like toolkit of like different ways to help people. And those same type of clients that were coming in had same issues or similar issues to my mom. So I was able to help them too.
That's awesome. And I guess you probably hit a bit of a gold mine because, especially as you get older, everyone seems like they have sleep issues. Everyone seems to have
Yeah,
stress
yeah.
issues. So it seems like there are probably no shortage of clients for you. So let's hang on that. How exactly do you get new clients? Is it mostly word of mouth? Are you advertising through social? Are you advertising brick and mortar style? How do you
hmm
get most of your clients?
Well, right now it's really through word of mouth, and also I really try to work on SEO or like Google Ads. So I have a Google business that people can just search up. So what I try to do is be in the top one to top five of like personal trainer near me or like sleep coach near me. So I try to get in with the maybe a 3 mile radius of that search.
Okay, okay. So when you're doing that, are you specifically targeting also your specific geographic area? Is that part of your keywords as well?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. So about like, really the neighborhoods that touch around where I'm currently located in Chicago, which is Old Irving. So it's about maybe 5 mile radius of people I'm looking for.
All right, that's really cool. Okay, and from all the different ways that you're advertising, which way is kind of giving you the most bang for your buck? Is it through social? Is it through word of mouth? Your SEO work? What is like giving you the best return, you think?
Of course, through word of mouth is like the number one, of course. I'd say the least one would be social media, just because my type of client isn't necessarily there, The biggest thing with social media is you're trying to stop people from being entertained to like try to sell them something and try to sign up for something, right? And that's been kind of difficult for me. I'd rather work with people who are looking for my specific services. So that's where I found the most benefit in using like SEO or like having, client testimonials and then them referring me people.
All right, cool. So you put out the advertisements, people find you, they contact you. What happens next? How does this all start to play out?
Well, really, first off, it starts with I like to have a vetting video before they can sign up for a like a Calendly call. And I've been doing that just because I want to work with the right people. Just like I was saying that I don't want to sell to people who aren't necessarily looking for my services. I also don't want to drag people along to get better, right? I want us to be like on the same page, going in the same direction. So I kind of like have a call that just or a video that just kind of explains like who is this for, who's this not for, right? If they get to the end of the call, then they can set up a like a meeting with me about like 20 minutes. We go over their goals, and then we do an assessment. And this assessment goes over one, like strength imbalances, flexibility imbalances, but also body composition, which is basically body fat percentage and also muscle mass, and also some like hormonal imbalances. And we kind of go through all of that. We see where they're at, where they want to be, and I tell them how we can get there.
So that's very cool. You talked about this vetting video, and I remember speaking with Jennifer Carr back in season one. She was a podcaster, and she talked about what it was like to be a podcaster. But one thing she talked about was having the form to vet her guests, and she was saying that sometimes people kind of snuck through that in her mind
Mhm.
they really shouldn't have. So. Talk to me about this vetting video. How often do you still have people kind of sneak through when they really shouldn't? What is that like for you?
It happens every now and then, but of course, that's why the first initial like introduction to my services is that assessment. So after they go through the video and after we do the initial discovery call, let's say they're still like sneaking through, we're going to do the actual assessment. And this assessment basically is like a comprehensive assessment from, you know, strength and flexibility all the way to hormones and body composition, right? And I kind of just describe to them, where they are, where they want to be, and if their goals are basically in line with mine and like how much effort they're willing to put in. And
Okay.
usually by that point, the people who stick around are the ones who are going to like be good to go. But even sometimes, even if those people like sneak through, within the first couple weeks, you kind of like feel it, and then maybe they'll drop off or whatever, you know?
Talk to me about the clients that do come in. Are they usually there long term, or do you see them like you end up seeing them on a monthly basis, a weekly, every other week, or is it more of like more fixed term where that you might only see them for a couple sessions, you resolve their issue, and then maybe they come back in a year for another issue? Talk to
Mhm.
me about all of that.
Yeah, so really what I've been working with some of my same clients for, 3, 4 years. And so they might have some initial issues that we work on, and let's say we correct those within a year or something like that, but there might be something else or new goals, things like that. But usually what happens is I have two different sets of clients. The one set of client are like what I see like every day, almost like, 4 or 5 times a week, and we're always working together. And the other set of client is where I see monthly, maybe for a couple times a week, and then they do their stuff independently. So we create a plan, we reassess. Those are the hybrid clients, and then they implement all these things independently. So it really depends on who it is, but most of it's long term.
Speaking of hybrid clients, and I don't think you meant it this way, but I'm going to go in this direction. How often do you see people virtually versus in person? How important is it to be working with them in the same physical space or not?
Oh, it is like probably the most important thing for me. I know like it's really big in like my space right now to do like online coaching, which is great. But some issues I mean are just like my biggest thing is assessments, figuring out where they are so I can really build a specific plan for them to where they want to be. And some of the assessments that I do need to be hands-on, you know? Uh, of course, there's some workarounds and things like that, but just like my method and how I've been working with clients, hands-on has been like the most effective and efficient. So I'd say that's what it is for that.
Let's talk about education briefly. You talked about before, you said you went to college,
Yeah.
and you talked about being, I can't remember if it was a personal trainer or a fitness trainer, something in
Yep.
that realm.
Yeah.
How important is your formal education in doing what you do now? Is it related? Is it completely unrelated? Talk to me about your formal education.
Yeah, so it's funny. I did kinesiology for my major in college. So it's really like has a lot to do with that stuff, but that's really geared towards doing like team coaching, let's say like strength and conditioning coach for like university, things like that, where it's like very beneficial. But for like what I do in running my own business, the only major class that like helped me the most was anatomy. Uh Other than that, a lot of the other like education I've done that's been the most valuable has been outside of school, actually. So like mentorships, internships, and also doing like, continuing education courses. So that's like really been like very like beneficial for me. And I've actually probably spent more time doing that than actual like, formal college.
Talk to me about those. How do you find those trainings that you are a part of, or even those mentors? Do you look to other professionals in your space? Do you just search for people and try to find?
Mhm.
How did you find those trainings that you could augment your knowledge?
Honestly, I just got really lucky, to be honest. I just found the right people at the right time. I think that's like one of the biggest things because, I'd say it's easy to find a mentor, but easy to find the right mentor is a lot harder. So I've been in this like mastermind group for about like, 4 or 5 years called ATG, which is called Athletic Truth Group. And they're kind of based off of one of the founders for, the health and fitness space, and his name's Charles Poliquin. And so there's kind of like a family tree of like all of his education, and like his students are teaching, their versions of his stuff and things like that. So I had kind of a good like, direction of who to learn from. But then from there, I mean, like, just like, let's say I started again, one of the biggest things is looking for people who get results, right? And can like show results in like a consistent, repeatable fashion, and that can teach you that you understand. Because a lot of people know a lot of the same things, but not a lot of people can teach other people the like ways to like interpret information and use it for themselves.
When you're working with different people, let's head back in that direction. Um, and you said that you're there physically. Do you have um, like a rented space that you meet up with at people? Do you have an office space? Do you go to their home? Do they go to your place? What's the physical space like?
Yeah, so actually I just rent space out of a local gym. The owner's been super cool to work with me, so I'm able to bring in, my massage table. I'm able to bring in, I have a little stand with all my supplements and all my, little gadgets that I use in order to track progress, things like that. So really it's just a local gym that I work out of.
Do you know, is that common? Can you typically rent space out? Do you know how common that is?
Honestly, it goes back and forth. It's common, I would say, but the situation I have would be maybe a little bit more uncommon because the owner is very flexible, and he's actually allowed me to bring in a lot of other things like, pieces of equipment and things like that. One, because, I'm adding value to the gym, but he's also, giving me the flexibility to be able to do these things, which not a lot of people would do. So I really appreciate him for that.
Okay. All right, cool. That's good to know.
Yeah.
You talked about the massage table, which made me think of this. Do you have like I don't know what it's called, but like a license to massage, or is it just use that table?
So yeah, so we just use the table for like, stretching, assisted stretching, things like that. Maybe a little bit of gua sha, which is basically it's not necessarily massage. It's kind of that like gray area between, stretching and massage where you can't really classify as either one of those, I would say, but basically it's kind of muscle scraping where we help alleviate some tension in the muscles in order to get more flexibility out of them.
Even though what you're doing, there's not a traditional medicinal component to it, are you still working with other medical professionals at all? Maybe like PTs, PTAs, doctors? Do you ever work in tandem? Do any of your clients see these people and they get referred to you? How does that all work?
I would love to, but the thing is that one, there are a lot of egos in like the, health and fitness space. So a lot of people like keeping clients for themselves. But then also with the kind of education that I've done, I've been able to kind of, touch all these different areas, whether it's, physical therapy or, functional medicine, things like that, where kind of I can kind of do a little bit of everything for the client, so I'm kind of a one-stop shop. So usually I don't really refer clients out to people like this because we're able to fix the situations, in-house.
And what about this? I remember speaking with someone before, and for the life of me, I can't remember who it was. But they talked about they were involved in the same general space that you're talking about, and they were talking about health insurance. Does
Mhm.
health insurance, from your experience, can people ever use health insurance to pay for what you're
Mhm.
doing, or not really? Talk to me about that.
No, technically not because it's not, it's not chiropractic or it's not, physical therapy, things like that. So they just pay out of pocket. But also when people pay out of pocket, they seem to be more invested in the results, right? And also the people, working like me, I know I'm getting paid out of pocket, so I know I better do my best job and like give the most effort. Sometimes maybe people who are getting paid by insurance, it's no one's really invested on either side necessarily. Which then who knows if they're like giving their most effort. That's what I'd say about that.
It's funny you mentioned that, and I remember reading this a long time ago. But the idea is when you give stuff away for free, people aren't as likely to use it, whether it's a free
Right.
book or it's CD or whatever it is. But when they pay for it, they're much more likely to then do that. And it's
Yep.
weird because you would think, you're getting it for free. Why wouldn't they? But the psychology behind it, it's so fascinating that they got to
Hmm.
feel that pain and then they'll actually use it.
Exactly. Fear of losing it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, talk to me about some of the perks that go along with doing what you're doing. Maybe some of the hidden perks that come along with doing what you're doing.
Honestly, I would say like, scheduling. I can do whatever scheduling I want to do. I would say also, writing things off. Because I have an LLC, I can write off, a lot of things as business expenses. But honestly, just working with different people and being able to not be boxed in. Before, I wanted to be an athletic trainer, and I thought that would be, a lot of fun because, I want to be around sports. But the more I looked into it, that was very like boxed in. You can only work with a certain amount of people, a certain demographic, certain injuries. I wanted to be able to work with whoever I wanted to, however I wanted to do it, my own way, So that's probably like the best thing that I like about it.
Talking about your schedule, I'm curious, what do you typically see from your clients? Are you typically seeing them 9 to 5? Is it mostly nights and weekends because of their jobs? What is very typical as far as people's schedules and how that relates to your work?
Yeah, so how I set up my schedule, going back to kind of those two different clients, the more like clients I see day to day, they're in the morning, like early morning, like 6 to 9, or in the afternoon, maybe they work remote or something like that. So those are the people I see day to day. The hybrid clients I see, on a monthly basis, usually in the evenings, because maybe they're working 9 to 5, and then they come after work. I show them their plan, we reassess, and then they do it by themselves when they have time to. So that's kind of like what the schedule looks like on that side.
All right, it's kind of all over. Okay, cool. A lot of
Yeah.
flexibility there. I like that.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the business side of things. You talked about taxes, essentially. You talked about forming your business.
Yeah.
And I'd love to ask this question because a lot of times, and I've said this before, people don't, from my experience, people go into they don't go into business for the business side of things. They go into business a lot of times because it's something they're passionate about and they know they can make money
Right.
doing it. So, talk to me about the business side of things. How did you learn the business side of things? Because you didn't go to school for business.
No.
How
Yeah.
did you learn all that?
Well, I took a couple business classes, and of course, doing mentorships is probably like the biggest thing, not just on the, skill side of training people and coaching people, but also on the business side. Learning from people who've been in the industry for like 10 years, have seen like the different trends when it comes to business and marketing, things like that. Learning from them, but then also just like doing self education by, trial by experience, right? So I've like tried a bunch of different things. I feel like what I'm doing now is going pretty well, but I've tried like, a bunch of different things. And I'd say like failing is good as long as you learn from it. So that's what I'd say about that.
That's awesome. I said it to my kids. I say you can make any mistake, yeah, within reason, as long as you
Yeah.
learn something from it. That's the most important thing is what
Yep.
did you learn from it?
Yeah. And so like right now what I'm doing for my new like business scheme is really I'm offering the hybrid service, but also for the in-person service, what I'm doing is unlimited training. Basically, you can come in and get coached as much as you want throughout the week. Because before, what's really been going on with like, my service or my like, coaching industry is like, sessions based. But the issue with that has been like one, I like to do like 3 or 6 month packages, but they've always been extended because of, it's based off of sessions, right? Um, and also I want clients to come in more to get more out of it. So by working and putting together something that's called like unlimited training, where they're able to come in as much as they want, basically on a monthly subscription, I'm able to one, not have the headache of tracking all these sessions, but then two, clients get more out of it, and also, the more they do, the like more benefit they get.
That's awesome. It sounds like almost everyone wins in this scenario.
Yeah, yeah, that's the plan.
I want you to think about what you do, no pun intended, holistically. Okay. And what makes what you're doing the absolute best job?
I think it's just because I'm able to actually like help people get better, right? Of course, like every coach does that, but I'd say, I don't know, there's just that feeling when you not even do more weight on the bar, but like let's say for example, I'm able to connect with the client on a certain level where, we start talking like one client, for example, he had like a lot of shoulder issues, he wanted to lose weight. But recently, like last week, we've been talking about because he used to be a football player, so he's had like a bunch of concussions. And what we really started talking about was that he wishes that he could go on roller coasters and like horseback riding with his kids, but right now he can't because every time his head like moves in a certain direction, he gets like nausea, and like very nauseous and like wants to throw up because of the concussions, right? And so learning from that, I'm like, wow, how can I help him be able to live his life to his fullest with his kids? By helping him work on these concussion issues that he's had in the past. So I'd say stuff like that.
And that's gotta be really cool too, because then as you we'll say this term loosely, but as you resolve different issues, it can also help out future clients as well. You research for one to help another, which is kind of
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. And I just love like there's a challenge or issue in front of me and I'm able to figure out a plan and like kind of analyze it, break it down, and then put something together that I think will work. So it's kind of like stimulating to me, like mentally too.
Other side of the coin, we talked about what makes this the best job. What makes this the worst job?
Working with clients that aren't bought in like how you're bought in. But also like it comes with the job. I don't think usually people are going to be more bought in than their coach. Because if they were, then they probably wouldn't have a coach in some sense, right? So it goes back and forth. I'd say at least it has to be maybe 50-50. Sometimes, when it gets bad, it can be 80-20. So that's what I would say with that.
I remember telling someone before, and I don't know if it ever made it into a recording or if I edited it out, because sometimes I'll edit out the stories. But I remember, in the past, I was working on a website for someone, and they paid because I did that freelance for a number of years,
Hmm.
and they paid me for it. Everything was good, and they never used the design ever.
Yeah, yeah,
And at
exactly.
first I was very frustrated, like why didn't they use it? I gave them, supposedly what they wanted, and but then I learned to just what they paid me. That's okay. They didn't want to use it. That's fine.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
hear what you're
no,
saying about that
exactly.
buy-in. I hear that.
Yeah, yeah. And then, I work with a lot of clients. I just remember one client who had really bad insomnia. And he said he did everything, and then I tried to work it out and figure out what it was and trying to figure it out, making a plan. And I made this whole plan, and then he just didn't end up doing it. And it just like it comes frustrating because also I feel like this is a creative endeavor that I do with clients. But the frustrating part is like I have a partnership with them in order to create something, so like two have to be able to do it. It's not just me.
Going back to the business side of things, I'm very curious. Do you have to carry any kind of special insurance, or is it just kind of like a general liability?
Yeah, just general.
Okay,
Yeah, general
okay,
liability insurance. Nothing too crazy,
that's
thankfully.
good.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm trying to do recently, I'm trying to identify how people can get into a particular job, but also if they want to get out of a job. So,
Hmm.
say you decide that you no longer want to do this. What would think about some ideas? What are some different jobs out there that you could take these skills that'd be useful to going to another job?
A lot of people who are in this space or like coaches like me that I've done mentorships with, they like didn't start as coaches. What they did before was engineering. Engineering different spaces, but I think it's just that like, you know, analyzing, trying to figure out, solutions to problems. So I'd say something like that, maybe in some type of engineering field. I don't know for sure, but thankfully I don't have to think about that too much, but some type of analytical thing where I'm able to solve problems and then give solutions and then actually track how we're getting better. So there's probably a lot of different things. I'd say probably just not sitting all day at a desk. That might be my worst thing.
It's so funny how people are like that. I am the opposite. I could be sitting all day and I get in the zone and I just do my thing. But I remember
Yeah.
my one son was saying the other day, we're talking about, what do you want to do when you grow up? And he says, anything as long as he's not in front of a computer all day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It just depends on the person, to be honest.
Okay, so talking about exiting the job, let's go backward to talk about getting into this job. What do you think, if any, are any specific skills that'd be very useful in carrying forward into this job? Maybe if someone has a strong business background, or maybe a social media background, or a PT background. What are some skills from a background that would lend themselves well to a person doing what you're doing?
Honestly, they just need to be able to work with people and like have like some type of understanding or empathy towards people. there's, just like I was saying before, a lot of my mentors, like one of my first mentors, he's a philosophy major and he's kind of like got into coaching and now he's like very successful in Toronto, you know? So it really doesn't have to be anything specific other than being able to work with people, kind of understanding people, and also wanting to, always improve and deliver on a service, I'd say.
How important is to have a 4 or a 6 year degree in doing what you're doing? If someone doesn't have that, would that be any kind of barrier or no?
No, I actually don't think it's a big barrier. I probably think that people might get lost and like caught up in that. The only time you would need that is something maybe like doing like being a strength and conditioning coach for a university. But other than that, experience will always beat formal education as long as you're able to learn from that experience and then experience with a mentor, being able to learn from that and also learn from their mistakes. That's like 100 times better than, maybe a formal education when you're going to, anatomy class, things like that.
That is awesome. I love jobs like that where it's like essentially anyone can do it. You might have to learn a little bit of things, but generally speaking, there are no major barriers. I absolutely
Yeah.
love that. Fernando, I feel like I could talk about this for so much longer, but unfortunately, we are running out of time. One thing I like to do whenever I'm speaking with someone, I like to give them the opportunity to talk about a project they're working on, a cause they believe in, more about their business. So if there's something specific you'd like to discuss, the floor is yours.
Yeah, nothing really major. I was like saying about the that new package that we're doing, the unlimited training, trying to get people in the door more often in order to get, more consistency and more results. Maybe one thing I'm starting to play around with is fasting for clients. Working on fasting for, fat loss goals and also general health, but doing it in a safe way where we're not losing muscle mass and only fat mass. So that's one of the major things I'm working on right now.
That is so cool. I love your approach to all this. It's so fascinating. It's so different from anything I've ever heard before. So it's really, really cool. I will make sure I get links from you. I'll put them in the show notes. They'll be in the description. They'll be on the website. They'll be all over the place. So when people are trying to find more information about you, they can easily find that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Fernando, it's been absolutely awesome having you on Time We Discussed It. We learned all about what it's like being a holistic coach.
Thank you so much.
Here are some of the highlights from the conversation with Fernando. The one thing I want to focus on is he talked about education. Now, this kind of reminds me of when I spoke with Wendy, the violin player, where she already had these years of music experience behind her. She was able to easily become a performer and have her own business as a performer. And I think that's very similar to Fernando here. He has the experience with kinesiology, with health science, and he can easily take that and transition that into being an effective coach. So I think if you want to be a holistic coach, you need to have some kind of training in that area. It doesn't necessarily have to be a 4 year degree or a 6 year degree, but you definitely need to have some kind of solid understanding when it comes to diet, stress management, exercise, all of those things that go along with being a holistic coach. Fernando also talked about his schedule, and I honestly didn't know what to think going into that question because I didn't know if it was going to be mostly a nights and weekends gig or if it was going to be all over the place. And it turns out it's pretty much all over the place. It seems like he has the flexibility to set his own hours accordingly. So that's kind of cool. You're not tied into necessarily nights, weekends, or during the day. Also, and he didn't mention this, but it's kind of implied, if you want to start doing something like this full time, you can easily work around your existing work schedule to make this happen. When it comes to working as a holistic coach, Fernando said that a lot of times people are working in a virtual environment or a hybrid environment. And for him, he thinks it's important to be in the physical space to actually work with his clients. He's also working in the hybrid space as well, but he thought the physical office area was very, very important. And because that, he's renting out space in his gym. So if you want to do something like this could be very important. You might have to rent out actually physical space. You could do it virtually, but there could be some benefit to actually working with a person in person. Probably like any other business or any other coaching business, the most difficult part is getting the credibility as you start. So getting those clients that give you that proven track record, that proven path of success is going to be key in getting future clients. So you might have to start with friends, family. If you're already a personal trainer, you might be able to take some of your clients and then catapult yourself into a holistic coach position. So depending how you view this job as a whole, there's definitely some good things and there are some bad things as well. So let's talk salary. In a previous episode, I spoke with Anna Burns, who is an ADHD business coach, and we talked about salary with life coaches in general. When it comes to being a holistic coach, the numbers actually aren't that much different. According to salary.com, you can expect a salary of around $60,000 a year on average. The lower 10% is closer to 45. and the upper 90% is around 77. So salary can definitely depend on how much experience you have, where you're located, other services you might offer, but generally speaking, you can expect a salary somewhere in that area. So what do you think? Some good things, some bad things. Is this the best job for you? Let's keep exploring, and I'll see you next time on Time We Discuss.